First of all, you've got to learn who we two are. You've got to relearn who we two are. Keep your ears open. I am Ernest V. Stoneman of Galax, Virginia, and the date is 1927. You got it? Ernest V. Stoneman of Galax, Virginia, and this is 1927. It is August 25th, 1927, in case you weren't watching your calendar. All right? Okay. This is Irma Frost of Galax, Virginia, and also Irma is with us on August 25th, 1927. And guess what Irma and Ernest are going to do? They're going to get in Ernest's car and they're going to drive to Bristol, Virginia. All right, guys, does anybody know why Ernest Stoneman and Irma Frost are driving to Bristol, Virginia on August 25th, 1927?
They're doing their famous recordings at the counterfeit meetings.
Another ringer. He knows. Could you tell us, would you, let him hear it. Do you mind turning around?
You tell me.
Yeah, all right, he knows what it is. Okay. The tale goes like this. In the early 1920s, the relatively new phonograph recording companies, discovered that there were two niche markets that they were interested in developing. The first was called race records. Race records were black buyers, and black buyers had a music of their own, and that was discovered by the major recording companies, including the Victor Talking Machine Company, in about 1922. And some of the greatest jazz that was ever recorded was recorded as race records by Victor and Columbia and Paramount and several other smaller labels in the 1920s. The other was hillbilly music. Hillbilly music started as follows. In 1922, a young fiddler named Eck Robertson performed at the Confederate reunion in Richmond, Virginia. And after he was through performing at the Confederate reunion, excuse me, he got on the train and went to Camden, New Jersey, and knocked on the door of the Victor Talking Machine Company and said, "I'm ready to perform." They were bemused, of course, and they said, "All right, let's try it." And they recorded him. They recorded 6 sides by Eck Robertson, of which at least one is a permanent classic, a recording of a fiddle tune called Sally Gooden, which is still in print still. And they released them, and it worked. All those hillbillies down there in the hills bought the record. And they thought, oh, well, for gosh sakes, you know. And, but the question is, who in the world can play this music? Nobody in Camden, New Jersey can play this music. What are we going to do? So they sent scouts out to find the performers. And in 1927, the Victor Talking Machine Company sent a scout named Ralph Peer to Bristol, Virginia. And Ralph Peer placed an ad in the Bristol, Virginia newspaper saying, "Auditions for mountain performers. We are looking for performers of authentic mountain music. If we release your record, we will pay you $50. And for every copy we sell, we will pay you 1.5 cents. Well, Ernest V. Stoneman and Irma Frost heard about it. And they traveled to Bristol, Virginia, and on August 26th or 7th, I don't know which, they arrived on August 25th, they recorded for the Victor Talking Machine Company, and one of the songs they recorded is called The Mountaineer's Courtship. All right, readjust to 1927, and here we will go. All right, I'll play my harmonica for this one, if I can find it. Just a second.
Behind you?
Would you please? This helps. It's great help. Thank you. Can you play it? Or? No. Half of the boys I do can play it. I'll just play it through in the harmonica once, okay? And then we'll go for it, okay? When
see me, see me, see me, when you come to see me, dear old mountain boy.
Think I'll come on Sunday, on Sunday, on Sunday. Think I'll come on Sunday if the weather's good.
How long you gonna court me, court me, court me? How long you gonna court me, dear old mountain boy?
Yes, I'll court you all night, all night, all night. Yes, I'll court you all night if the weather's good.
Well, when we gonna get married, married, married? When we gonna get married, dear old mountain boy?
Yes, we'll marry in a week, in a week, in a week. Yes, we'll marry in a week if the weather's good.
Well, how we gonna get to the wedding, the wedding, the wedding? How we gonna get to the wedding, dear old mountain boy?
I think I'll bring my log sled, my log sled, my log sled. Think I'll bring my log sled if the weather is good. I'll play.
Well, could you bring a buggy, a buggy, a buggy? Can you bring a buggy, my dear old mountain boy?
Ox won't pull no buggy, no buggy, no buggy. Ox won't pull no buggy, not even the weather's good.
Who's gonna come to the wedding, the wedding, the wedding? Who's gonna come to the wedding, dear old mountain boy?
Think I'll bring my children, my children, my children. Think I'll bring my children if the weather's good.
I didn't know you had no children, no children, children. Didn't know you had no children, dear old mountain boy.
Boy, yes, I have 5 children, 5 children, 5 children. Yes, I have 5 children, maybe 6 children.
There ain't gonna be no wedding, no wedding, no wedding. Ain't gonna be no wedding, my dear old mountain boy.
Ain't gonna be no wedding, no wedding, no wedding. Ain't gonna be no wedding, not even if the weather is good. You can hear Ernest V. Stoneman and Irma Frost replay that. It has been reissued. Isn't it? Wonderful. All right, folks, well now, I'll tell you what. Maddie's got a beautiful old song for you. Go ahead, Maddie.
All right, and can I borrow that,
You need something?
the stand?
What does she need? Oh, the stand, yeah, go ahead. That's
Yes.
fine, yeah.
Oh, now, before, we were talking about Singer's Glen and the music, the sacred harp music. There's some wonderful, wonderful stories about that and the singing of people in there. And so this song, Wayfaring Stranger, is one that was sung in the sacred harp singing and been around for some time. It's Wayfaring a Stranger. I'm just a wayfaring stranger, traveling through this world of woe. But there's no sickness, no toil or danger in that fair land to which I go. I'm going there to see my father. I'm going there no more to roam. I'm just a going over Jordan. I'm just a going over home. I know dark clouds will gather round me. I know my way is rough and steep, but beauty feels like just before me, where God's love souls their vigils keep. I'm going home to see my mother. I'm going home, no more to roam. I'm only going over Jordan. I'm only going over home.
It's beautiful. Did you pass out the thing over, Maddie?
Yes, I
Yeah.
sure will.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, folks, I will be very surprised if there are any ringers for what I'm about to tell you now. Let's see here, this song, let me fish it out of the, just a minute. Oh, we're gonna do an Old Virginia. Yeah, okay, that is one that I don't think anybody's gonna be able to. Hi, come on in, welcome, welcome. Okay, yes, hi, David. One of your handouts, I don't know what I got it here. Okay, sir, could you get me the boy, am I spoiled. Could you give me the handout with the picture on it? Yeah, I'll give you yours, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, the photograph that you see here was taken in Hyman, Kentucky, on September 21st, 1917. It shows the English folk song collector Cecil Sharp collecting songs in the Appalachians with his assistant, a lady named Maud Carpolis. In the summers of 1916, 1917, and 1918, this English duo spent 46 weeks in the Appalachian Mountains, in the mountains of Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Kentucky, collecting folk songs. It was a great time to do it, but a difficult time for them. There were very few roads, very few cars, and it was in the mountains at a time before radio, before cars, when most transportation was by wagon or horse, and when many people were very isolated. The two of them did a magnificent job. You can see here in this picture how they collected. Cecil Sharp had a little musical notebook with 5 lines, and he listened to the singer, and he wrote down in musical notation what he heard. Maud on the right wrote down the words, and then they sang it back to the person to be sure they had it right. And they said, no, here in the second note here, you got it wrong. And they would straighten it out until they had it just right. They collected 1,612 tunes, representing 500 songs from 281 singers. And then in 1932, Oxford University Press published English folk songs for the Southern Appalachians, a selection from the tremendous bunch of songs, 274 songs with 968 tunes selected from the Sharps collection. It's still the greatest collection of Appalachian songs that was ever made. It is in print, and of course you should have it. From that I will play you just one song. I like to play about 3 or 4. There are some beautiful things. This one is In Old Virginia. This was collected by Sharp from Jacob Souter of Franklin County, Virginia, August 14th, 1918, just over 100 years ago. Franklin County is just south of Roanoke, south side Virginia, and the song is a version of East Virginia, which is known throughout the Appalachians. let's see if I forgot where I'm tuned just now. I'm all right. And now we will get a, whoa, hey, I'm leaving now. I want one of the thick breaks, okay. Just a second, folks. Here we go. No, we don't, we gotta go the other way. All right. Well, the reason I'm fishing is that I need a pick with a binder around it to hold it because I slipped, I realized. What did I do with it?
Want this one?
No, dear, that's too good a pick. I think that might be back here, just a minute. I don't feel like calling him again. Yeah. Just a second. I see it. At least I see where it is.
Maggie, do you have the words for Old Virginia?
Oh,
Is this the old Mike song?
Not here.
yeah, and,
Back with the
All
cornfields
right.
and cutting potatoes and all that?
yeah, and,
Yeah.
yeah.
Guys, this is a little bag for jacks. Anybody play jacks when they were kids? Where's the jacks bag? I'll bet none of you got one, all right? All right. In Old Virginia. I was born in Old Virginia, North Carolina I did go. There I met a fair young maiden, her name and age I did not know. Her hair was dark in color, her cheeks were of a rosy red, and my heart I loved her dearly. Many a tear for her I shed. At my heart you are my darling. At my door you're welcome in. At my gate I'll always greet you, for you're the girl I long to win. I'd rather be in some dark valley where the sun will never shine than for you to be another man's darling when I know you should be mine. I don't want your greenback dollar. I don't want your diamond ring. All I want is your heart, darling. Say you'll come to me again. I was born in Old Virginia, North Carolina I did go. There I met a fair young maiden, her name and age I did not know. Cecil Sharp collected another version of that from a lady named Judy Baker of Greasy Creek, Kentucky. It obviously floated around in the Appalachian. And that one is in the Darien mode. I had a hard time deciding whether to do the Virginia version or the Darien mode version from Kentucky. I decided we better go Virginia. But if we do this again, it's going to be that Kentucky version in Darien. It's just gorgeous. All right, folks, now what are we up to, Maddie? What are we doing? Oh, my goodness gracious. Maddie, my dear, I think we ought to reverse these things. I want to be sure they hear Shenandoah. And therefore, even though it doesn't say Shenandoah next to it, would you do Shenandoah? Yeah, okay. Can you tell them a little bit about it?
I am.
Okay.
Shenandoah is one of those with many travels, but some significant one of the significant ones, when I traveled along the Missouri River to the Mississippi and to the mouth of the Mississippi, and during the more difficult times of year, English sailors, that they would stay close in to the river for their safety and so forth. And Shenandoah became just this wonderful capstan chanty, like, oh Shenandoah, I long to see you. And then the people doing the work, way, hey, you rolling river. And if you go to England, that's the way you're going to hear Shenandoah. But it traveled in fact, one of the precious moments in my life 10 years ago or so, and I was playing in England, and this wonderful man, Terry, beautiful voice, and in this concert, we did Shenandoah. Of course, I was doing it mushy Maddie style, and he was singing this beautiful voice, and the audience was doing the way, hey, roll, and I was in tears the whole time. So it's one of those with journeys. Oh, Shenandoah, I long to see you. I'm bound away across the wide Missouri. Oh, Shenandoah, if e'er I leave you, over rolling river, Shenandoah, I'll never forget you. Away, I'm bound just kind of take all those songs and make them our own.
That was beautiful,
Just,
Maddie, that's just wonderful, thank you. Well, for this one, folks, I feel pretty confident we don't have a ringer for this one. Just a second, I want to get, I used to be a runner, would you believe it? Okay. About 7 or 8 years ago, I went down to Woodlawn Plantation, which is down near Mount Vernon. Some of you have probably been there. And in the bookshop, I saw a book. It was called Slave Songs of the United States. And up top it says, originally published in 1867. And it has compiled by, and then there are 3 names down here. Well, I was intrigued. I had never seen the book. I bought it, and I looked at it. It is an off-print of the original. That is to say, it wasn't reset or anything like that. An off-print of the original book. And I'm something of a book collector to the extent that my wife will allow it. And a while ago, I was looking through an old catalog of a rare book dealer in Michigan, and lo and behold, he had the first edition, 1867. It was extremely expensive. It took me 3 days before I crumbled. And then Maddie and I worked on it. The story, and I learned the story of the book, which is very interesting. And Maddie and I, she took the reprint, and I took the original, and we created a songbook for modern use from 24 of the songs of the book. Now, let me see here.
It's right here.
You got one right there?
Yeah, because I'm going to use it.
Okay. We created a book, and we reset, Maddie reset the songs with Dulcimer tablature and guitar chords and a line of musical notation. Most of the time resetting the key is among other things. And from the Library of Congress, we got old photographs. And now I'll tell you the story of the song, of the book. It begins in 1860 when South Carolina, well, first of all, these songs come from the South Carolina Sea Islands, number one. Number two, the South Carolina Sea Islands and the Georgia Sea Islands are a number of small islands off the coast of South Carolina and Georgia that are ideal for growing cotton. They're low and they have sort of sandy soil, they're just the right thing. And thousands of slaves had been brought to the Sea Islands to raise the cotton crop. In December 1860, South Carolina was the first state to secede from the Union. And on April 12, 1861, you don't know the date, but you know what happened. South Carolina fired on Fort Sumter in the Charleston Harbor and initiated the Civil War. Two things happened. First, Abraham Lincoln ordered a blockade of the southern ports because, of course, he understood, as the South did, that their economy depended greatly on the export of cotton to England across the Atlantic, and he ordered a blockade of the ports. Secondly, I lost my little point there. Oh yes, secondly, among these islands there are two, one called Port Royal Island, another called St. Helena. And there's about a 1 mile deep water port wide estuary in between St. Helena and Port Royal Island. Ideal for warships and things like that, for large ships. Both sides coveted this estuary. The Union acted in November 7, 1861, yeah, I got the notes here. 68 Union warships entered Port Royal Sound, the name of this estuary, fired on the forts on both sides and landed troops. The owners of the plantations fled. There was no fight. All the plantations, some of them were eating lunch and all that kind of stuff. They dropped everything. Some of them, with the assistance of slaves, crossed to the mainland and fled, leaving several thousand, at least, slaves to their fate. This caused an immediate reaction in the North among the anti-slavery societies and similar organizations, who immediately sent people to the islands to see what was needed by the slaves to survive. They were left destitute. And 3 categories of help were immediately provided. So-called superintendents to run the plantations, ministers for the black people, for whom religion they knew was very important, and teachers to teach the children and adults how to read and write. It was against the law in South Carolina to teach a slave to read or write, so they were all entirely illiterate. I'll just pause here for a moment to tell you that 2 women named Laura Town, a member of the Unitarian Church of Philadelphia, and Ellen Murray, sent by the Port Royal Committee of Boston, went immediately to the islands and set themselves up as teachers and stayed there for the rest of their lives, teaching black children to read and write. I don't think the feminists have caught up with these 2 ladies yet, but they're great Americans. Should so much be known. We have pictures of them. Yeah, we got pictures. Okay. Now here is another matter. Sorry, this takes enough time. I'll have to tell them. I know we're late, so I'll cut it to 20 minutes. How's it? All right. One of the people who went down was James McKim, the director of the Pennsylvania Anti-Slavery Society. He brought with him his 19-year-old daughter, Lucy McKim. She stayed there 3 weeks. She was a gifted pianist, and she collected songs from the slaves. And then she went back home, and she communicated with 2 superintendents who sent her more songs. In 1867, Lucy published Slave Songs of the United States. It was the first book ever published of slave songs directly from the slaves and before the Civil War was over. Needless to say, I treasure this book. All right, dear, I think that was only 20 minutes, wasn't it? 25? Okay, all right. We got to do it, all right. Now, she and I will, from this song, from this book, we will sing for you.
May I have your attention, please? The Reston Library will close in 30 minutes at 5 o'clock. The computers will automatically shut down 5 minutes before closing, so please print or save your work now. If you need help, please come to a staff desk. Thank you.
You're probably talking about Maddie and me. All right, guys, I'll tell you what. We want to sing for you, Roll, Jordan, Roll. This is one of the songs collected by, yeah, here you go, dear. What do you got?
I need this.
And you need the whole works. Okay, here comes the whole works. All right. And you folks have got it. Now, I want you to look at it, please, because what's going to happen, first we'll just sing it through once so you get the idea. And then we want you to join us. I just can't resist. If you'll give that back to me for just a minute, now that you...
Okay. Oh.
Lucy sent a little article to a publication called Dwight's Journal of Music, who published it on November 8, 1862. And here's what Lucy said. She said, "Perhaps the grandest singing we heard was at the Baptist Church on St. Helena Island, when a congregation of 300 men and women joined in a hymn, Roll, Jordan, roll, Jordan, roll, Jordan, roll. It swelled forth like a triumphal anthem. That same hymn was sung by thousands of Negroes on the 4th of July last, 1862, when they marched in procession under the Stars and Stripes, cheering them for the first time as the flag of our country." I can hardly say it, you know. Okay. You know, I think my pick is right underneath that stuff, I think, Maddie, I'm sorry. Let me see it. Where did it go? Ah, here it is. All right. Folks, I'm gonna pass these out. Here's Slave Songs of the United States, published in 1867, entirely forgotten, not republished until 1929. I bought this at Woodlawn, I suppose you can get it. Okay. I'm gonna ask you to be good and not to take this out of this thing, but here's the first edition of Slave Songs of the United States. I'll read that. I was reaching, I was not too late. I'm sorry, folks. Pacers. See if we can get it to hold. All right, so I'm sorry. Typical among the singers. First they would say my brother, then my sister, the same song with just the one word different. I don't know what we had first, brother. Okay, let's do sister this time, okay? My anything to hear it, to hear what Lucy heard. Oh, boy.
Well, I think we better so they can close up
You
the
mean,
library.
they're giving us notice they're gonna kick us out. David's getting very serious about it. It won't be long.
That's right.
Now
And
let's,
so-
hey, it's almost overtime. Now what we were gonna
We're
sing?
gonna do my Blue Ridge Mountains.
Okay, now, all
Our
right.
home is across the Blue
You're not
Ridge.
watching the clock, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, My home's across the Blue Ridge
yeah.
Mountains. Very, very simple. You know how to do it? No, I'll just say, my home's across. Oh, wait a minute. Let's get in with her. Where are you in G? Go ahead. Okay, I'll put it.
Well, I can do it in D. You want?
No, I don't
You
want it
in
in
D?
D. My 5-note range won't handle it. Just a minute, I want it in G. Just a second. Even here on Monday morning, I'm leaving here on Monday morning. I'm leaving here on Monday morning. I don't expect to see you anymore. How can I keep from crying? How can I keep from crying? How can I keep from crying? I don't expect to see you anymore. My baby fever candy. My baby fever candy. Rock my baby fever candy. I don't expect to see you anymore. My home's across the Blue Ridge Mountains. My home's across the Blue Ridge Mountains. My home's across the Blue Ridge Mountains. I never expect to see you anymore. Folks, thank you for coming. We've enjoyed it very, very much. We've got a few things for sale here. You can get Maddie's voice, and I think everybody should have it. She's got a few recordings here. I got a couple of my books that tell us about the adventure of finding out the story of the Dulcimer, which I've told you today. Thank you again for
Oh,
coming.
and thank you for singing and being with us.